Hey YouTubers, I'm here today diagnosing a non-charging problem with my John Deere D170. I've got my helper here today, although she's not doing a whole lot right now. But we're going to check the charging system on this thing and see if we can figure out why it's not charging the battery. I've already done a voltage test to the battery, and there is no voltage coming from the alternator to charge it. The battery voltage does not increase as you start the engine and run it. As you can see, I have the top of the engine removed, the shroud around the flywheel. You do that by removing the air filter and various screws around the outside and in the air filter compartment itself. I've done this to get to the stator wires, which is tucked in behind this little shroud here. Some of you might be able to wiggle that connector through this slot into the outside without removing this shroud, but I went ahead and removed it. Next, I took my multimeter and put it on ohms. That tests resistance through the coils. So we're going to check that right here on this yellow connector and see what we come up with. What you need is resistance through the two leads right there. You should have continuity between those two leads, but then when you check each lead to ground, you should not have continuity. If you do, that means the stator coils have been shorted and are grounding. Alright, we've determined the stator is bad, so now we're going to change it out. Remove these 4 bolts on top, 2 of them there under the air filter, and then there's these bolts all around the outside of the shroud. Okay, the shroud is off. Next we remove this nut that holds the flywheel off and these 2 bolts next to it. Okay, getting ready to pull the flywheel off. I had to run to the box store and get a couple of 5/16 bolts for my puller. But here we go. Alright, the flywheel is off and there's our stator. We're simply going to unbolt it and put the new one in. When you pull the flywheel off, make sure you don't lose the key out of it and it drops off somewhere where you don't see it. Here's the stator removed from the machine. You can see it's visibly fried. Wow, this thing really got hot and came apart. Alright guys, just to review again, I'm checking the new stator this time. Continuity between the 2 leads, yes. Continuity to ground, no. So that shows us it's good. And that's what was bad when we tested before. Okay, here's the flywheel. I got it all cleaned up, getting ready to put it back on. Remember, this is a magnet. Don't lay it down somewhere where it can pick up something metal, and then you try to assemble it and destroy everything. I put a dab of grease on the keyway to hold it in place. This is important to get this together correctly. That keyway's got to line up with this slot without knocking it out of there. Okay, the flywheel's in place. You can look down the hole and see the keyway's in place. You can also put a little screwdriver down here and there to make sure it is there if you can't see it. But ours is in place, so we're ready to put it back together. Also, remember when you're getting ready to put the nut and the washer back on the flywheel, it's a spring washer, so the dome side needs to go up. Hope you can see that in the video. I'm not sure you can, but once you look at it, you'll know. Okay, everything's all reassembled. One thing I did differently, I pulled the stator wires outside of this shroud so they could just hang out here in the open air. Didn't make a lot of sense to have it under that shroud laying on top of a hot engine, so I pulled them out and there they are. Okay, everything's back together. We're going to start it up and see if it charges. You can see right now we have battery voltage. So let's check it out. anyway, it's working now. You can see it went way up over 14 volts. The battery was kind of low when we started it, so that makes sense. Anyway, there you go. It's all finished.